discussion related to the agenda? Gunnar, do you want to talk about? Well, we're going to cover it under other business, so we don't need to talk about that. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? Let's, we're going to move to item number 3. Actually, did we pick up a couple people? Gunnar?
We picked up at least one, Charlie, so I think we're at 14.
Okay. I know it was at 18 when I started and it's up to 20, so.
There's a few staff on there. Oh,
okay.
I see one more. Okay, I think we have 15.
Okay, let's take action before anybody has to jump off. So I direct your attention to page 2 in your board packet. We are considering approval of the minutes from our previous meeting.
Filter information through and rely on, or just adding that action.
So page 2 would be the minutes. Are the right minutes in the board packet?
Piece of it, because as a service provider,
I think we have some folks that need to mute if they're not talking about. So anyway, I'll take a vote to approve the minutes that were on page 2.
This is Deb Bingson, so moved.
Thank you, Deb. Is there a second?
John DeWard, second.
Thanks, John. Any further discussion related on item 3, approval of the minutes?
I'm just going to note that I think the date on here is wrong, but the minutes themselves are from the last meeting, so the minutes themselves should be accurate.
Thank you. That's where I guess I was getting at too. So with the change in the minutes from January to March, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item number 4, direct your attention to page 7. These were items, because we did not have quorum at our March meeting, that we need to ratify our March actions. So directing you to page 7. So this would involve minutes, agenda, the budget, the contract with the MPO, and the state auditor's opinion.
I believe most of you were on the call last month, and so I won't go into too much depth on these unless you have any specific questions for me. The FY22 agenda and minutes are pretty self-explanatory. Won't spend any time on those. FY22 budget, it was just for the first 3 months and was consistent with the discussions we had leading up to that point. Dylan's with us today if you have any questions for him on the budget. The contract with the MPO, we're going to revisit that today with a more in-depth contract to look at. I will note that last month it was just an approval for kind of the employment aspects of the contract, which is to say giving MPO staff authority to proceed with hiring a planner for MIPA. And then lastly was the state auditor's opinion with regards to MIPA making a statement of public purpose. I'll pause there to see if there are any questions on last month's items before asking for a vote.
Seems pretty quiet, Gunnar. Do I have a motion to approve the ratifying the items that we took action on in March?
This is Alex Lynch. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Alex. Is there a second to Alex's motion?
Second, Carla Isink.
Thank you, Carla. We have a motion and a second to ratify the actions that we took in March. Any discussion, any further questions for Gunnar or the team at MIPA or at the MPO on this? Okay, hearing none, let's vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries. Okay, let's move to item number 5. Looks like we're going to be talking about the contract with the MPO. So look at page 8 in your board packet. Report on draft contract with administrative and staffing services with the Des Moines MPO and consider approval. So Gunnar, are you covering this?
I will. Hopefully you all received a copy of the actual contract language with your board packet. The background here is the same as we've been talking about the last few months. Where the partnership program requires MIPA to directly hire at least one employee, which we are going to be doing. And then the contract with the MPO then is to cover the balance of MIPA's needs as an organization. So the primary pieces of that are to provide all management, the administration functions. Todd, our executive director, would be the supervisor of employees, including hiring and firing. We would also have human resource functions such as payroll and benefits, accounting and auditing. And then also MPO staff can be called upon to provide planning support. And what that does is gives MIPA one, access to the broader expertise of MPO's various staff members, and also it just kind of deepens MIPA's bench for planning efforts as needed. Annual costs, about $61,000, 36 in indirect, 15 in planning support, 3,000 for the audit, and then 6,500 in admin support. That's all I have for the contract, but I'll pause and ask if you have any questions. Or Dylan, if there's anything you want to add. No, I don't have to do that.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, do I have a motion to proceed with awarding the contract to the Des Moines area MPO? I'll probably have to have,
So moved.
and who was that again?
Don DeWard.
Thank you, John. Do we have a second to John's motion to approve the contract?
Does Alex Lynch, I'll second that.
Thank you, Alex. So we have a motion.
Just a second, it's Don, D-O-N, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Don. Any further discussion related to the contract and the information that was provided to us ahead of the meeting? Hearing none, let's proceed with the vote. All those in favor of proceeding with awarding the contract and the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Thanks, everyone, on that. Let's move to item number 6. Gunnar?
So we are going to ask for your vote on going into closed session, and the legal justification for that is found in Chapter 21 of the Open Meeting Laws to evaluate the competency of an individual, in this case, under discussion for hiring. And that individual did request a closed session. And just for everyone's recollection, our bylaws do call for the board to conduct its meetings in accordance with Chapter 21. Even though it's a nonprofit, we're acting very much in this way. So that's our legal justification for going into closed session.
Okay, this is Clyde Evans, so moved.
Second,
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to go into closed session. Any other further discussion or questions? Hearing none, let's vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. We'll go into close. We're back in open session. Gunnar, would you like to summarize things?
Yeah, so as we've been talking about, the MPO has been working through the process of hiring a planner for MIPA. We received 3 applications, conducted 2 interviews, and have recommended a single finalist. That finalist was reviewed by the hiring committee, as noted on the screen before you. The finalist has told us that if he were to accept a recommendation, we'll be looking at about a couple weeks lead time before he can get started. So our revised target is Monday, April 25th. And the staff would recommend approval to extend an offer of employment.
Any further questions for staff? I will take a motion to accept the staff and hiring committee's recommendation.
So moved, Mike Swayze.
We have a second to Mike's motion.
Second, Ryan Moffett.
Thank you, Ryan. We have a motion and a second to proceed with the staff and hiring committee's recommendation to move to offer of employment. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All those in favor of motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for your work on that. Looks like we're moving to item number 8 related to membership. So whoever on staff is providing us an update, that would be great.
I'll give you a real brief one. This hasn't changed much since you saw it last. The one exception is the city of Cumming is the 47th jurisdiction that I haven't reported to you previously. And it was because they had just sent us money and had told us. And so as we were working through some of that stuff, we corrected our records. There are 47 right now. The other thing that I would note is that there are a few others where conversations are continuing. So we may still see a few trickle in as yet, but as of right now, not a whole lot of change. But I thought we'd keep this as a recurring item for a while yet, since we're still so new. That's
So no actions required, but any questions related to membership?
This is Ryan Moffett. I was just going to point out, just last night, I'm with City Des Moines Office of Economic Development. At last night's council meeting, I was appointed as a member to MIPA, or a board member. So just wanted to introduce myself and happy to be a part of the group.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Everybody knows you, Ryan.
Okay, let's move to item number 9, partnership program.
So I was hoping to have official news, but I do not as yet. But I can say that EPA staff has, after receiving the application and asking us for several follow-ups, they've said everything looks good. They're just waiting on signatures, so it's just signatures at this point. This is the 3-year grant for $70,000 annually for capacity building that we've been talking about, and we'll still be able to initiate the program effective April 1. So any expenses can be used with the partnership program.
Any questions on that from the board? It'll be fun to get that approval. Let's move to item number 10, board and executive committee. Page 13 in your board packet.
This is a continuation of our update from last month. We're using the first quarter here of operations to transition to the full-time board. In mid-March, we made solicitations to all of our member jurisdictions asking for board reps from those communities, and gave them an April 15th deadline to appoint board members. We've heard from several, but we'll need to hear from more soon. In April, once all the board members from jurisdictions are appointed, we can then solicit the private sector reps from those member jurisdictions. The process here would be that all the appointees from a county, and I say county, I mean lowercase county or region, would then get together to decide who their private reps would be. We'll hope to have those in place by May 13th. And then in late May, we'll hold the first full board meeting. And per our discussion last month, that at 10 a.m. Thursday, May 26th, that date was communicated with all jurisdictions in the letter asking for their board representation. So hopefully people are getting their calendars marked. We'll have good participation there. Typically, we're anticipating for the bylaws that we'll have an annual meeting just once per year in May. And then we anticipate there being a need for another meeting in September this year to adopt the sets. We have to update it to stay on the EDA's 5-year cycle for Iowa and Montana. And then also, once we have the appointees for the board by late April, we can begin soliciting executive committee reps. And we will also have that locked in by May 13th. And then I've put together a bi-monthly schedule for the executive committee. My thought here, and I'm open to your feedback, is that we talked about bi-monthly, 6 months per year, and we would put it on the same cycle as the annual board meeting, so that in the month of May, there would not be a separate executive committee meeting, but rather they would be part of the full board meeting. So that puts us on May, July, September, November, January, March cycle. And then the only thing that would be out of put it on the 4th Thursday, but then in November, I proposed doing it 1 week early due to the Thanksgiving holiday. So I thought we would put those dates out there early so we can get any feedback on them and start scheduling.
So there's no action required, but is there questions from the group related to board and executive committee?
Curtis Brown here. Thanks for the extension on the deadline. Our appointment will come on April 19, as I suspect some other groups will kind of drift into late April too.
Yep, no worries. Thanks, Curtis.
Okay, let's move.
Hey, really quick.
Yeah.
Gunnar, did you mention what time those meetings would be at?
You know what? It's not in the slide deck here. Apologies. We're thinking 10 a.m.
Okay.
on those Thursdays.
I know I was kind of looking through really quick and oh, never mind. Okay. I'm looking at my dates wrong. So that should work for me. Yep. But that works. Thank you.
Okay, we are up to item 11, page 14 in our packet.
So wanted to bring to your attention some feedback that we received through the process of asking for board representation. We've got a couple lines of questioning about this that I want to bring to your attention in the event that the board was interested in updating the bylaws. The two areas where we've been getting questions are one on alternates. The bylaws are silent on whether board members can send alternates. I know other regional bodies such as the MPO do use alternates all the time. So I don't see much harm in doing it. At the same time, there's only one meeting a year, maybe two. So if you can't make the one meeting, maybe you should appoint somebody else. So I could argue that one either way. But just want to bring that one to your attention. And then also small city representatives. This one comes from Jasper County, and Jeff can't be on the phone today, but I know Tanya is on. The issue is, in Jasper County, it's a little bit unique in that the board of supervisors paid first-year dues for every city in the county. And so even their smallest cities are members. And so they're worried about getting representatives from each of them. And even if they do have those representatives, they're worried about getting quorum or getting those people to participate in the annual meeting. There's no alternate offered in the bylaws. So I just want to bring this to your attention and ask for some discussion around this. And if there was interested in touching the bylaws, we could bring it back at a later date.
Any staff recommendations so far?
No, I don't think so. We were hoping to get legal review, especially on the second one. The first one we could add, as far as alternates are concerned, I think we could add alternates. I don't see any harm in it. And it would be easy to give us a way to get quorum in case the primary can't make it. I really see no harm in number one. Number two, I'd like to get legal counsel to weigh in on, just to make sure that there wouldn't be any issues if we were to. So the one thought was have multiple cities represent the same or appoint the same person to be their representative, effectively giving one individual the votes of multiple jurisdictions. Would want legal counsel to weigh in on that before we would even consider it.
Gunner,
Yeah.
just to clarify, in Jasper County, the county voted to pay for all the other towns besides Newton, and then Newton
Yes.
paid. And I represent Newton, and Jeff would represent through JEDCO. He already represents the other incorporated towns in Jasper County. So that was the thinking, at least for our county.
Thank you for that clarification. All right, Tanya, did you have any more thoughts on this, on what the bylaws might do to rectify this?
Say that again, Gunner.
I just want to know if you have any thoughts on the best course.
Well, I feel like Jeff representing the smaller cities, because he already does represent them through JEDCO. But if you felt like having an alternative who could show if those elected people, let's say each town did have an elected person, if they could have an alternative, I think I could see how that might work also.
Any other thoughts? Otherwise, I'll propose a couple of questions to the group. I guess I would ask one, do you think the issues rise to the level that we should consider bylaws? And two, if so, would we want to try to do something before the annual meeting, which would require an additional meeting of this group later this month or early May?
Gunner, this is Curtis Brown. Just one thought. I was struggling a bit with, it's a great step that the county has encouraged the participation of so many cities. One initial thought is this I don't know how acute the problem is. I wonder if there could be a trial run, so to speak, where we see, is this quorum issue an issue? And the idea of this initiative is to really encourage the growth and economic development across the region from small to large. Perhaps this is a way for some of these smaller communities to participate in the economic development of the region. So I might say, if there's a way to encourage their participation and bring them to the table, that might be a fine way to proceed, and we could deal with the issue if it in fact becomes one. It's just one perspective from where I sit today.
And Curtis, I will say, I think from Jeff's point of view, he was worried about a quorum not being represented and then causing a problem with the board. So I think Jeff and I would agree with what Curtis just said for sure, but just not wanting to stymie anything.
Well, I would have a little more comfort with not making any changes with that regard. And just give it a go. Any other thoughts on that? Brenda, do you want to weigh in? What do you think?
Well, I also would agree with Curtis. Let's see if it indeed becomes an issue. Keep in mind that the executive's only convening 6 times a year and the full board once or twice. So I guess I was just trying to do the math in my mind. If we have 47 towns, each one of them has a rep. And then we have the privates from the counties, certainly we ought to be able to get at 51%, but it was hard to, how many towns are we talking about in Jasper County, not including Newton?
Your test.
Oh, good question. What'd you say, Gunner? Like 7?
So
Monroe,
please,
Monroe, Prairie City, Baxter,
Mingo,
Mingo,
Kellogg,
Kellogg.
Colfax.
Yep, Colfax.
I feel like there's maybe like Valeria, Ira. I can't remember if those were incorporated, but 7-ish.
so even if we assumed at every time we had a meeting, those 7 weren't going to be there, I would still hope we could still be fine. But
It's
I
12.
guess I'd be interested to ride this out for a year, see what happens before we start jumping into changing bylaws. That's my feedback.
And just for the record, it is 12, so it's almost 25% of the board or the.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that kind of changes it a little.
Gunnar, this is Clyde. I know when I worked for a previous EDD, what we did is for the small cities, they basically would get together and elect a representative. And then there would be an alternate available for meetings. And we did it by county. So each county had a small cities rep. So I don't know if that changes the dynamics or not, but that's something maybe to consider.
Well, that's exactly what Jeff would be. He is JEDCO and he is Jasper County and does represent those cities currently. So that was the thinking there.
Yeah. And then maybe have an alternate for him then, in case for whatever reason he can't make the meeting.
Sure.
Well,
I
with
think
new
we-
information. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, I think that we would be open to waiting a year also. So please don't think this is something we're going to try to push. If we want to wait a year and see if that is a problem, I think we'd be fine with that also.
This is Mike Swayze. If I understand correctly, they're 25% of the board. So would one vote have that much weight then?
So they're 25% of the jurisdictional appointees. Each county is also going to have 2 private reps. So 14. They're about 20% of the. I'm guessing Jasper County will have about 20% of the votes based on these numbers. In terms of what it's structured like in the bylaws, it's currently one jurisdiction, 1 vote. And so if there was a small city representative, without altering the power dynamic, the one person would have all those votes, or you could change the power dynamic. The initial bylaws were 1 city, 1 vote, because it was simple and flat.
It would be great if the economic developer that's already representing those towns, if they're participating in his board, maybe there's a challenge that they become the reps. And since they're already somewhat engaged, if they're participating in that economic development board already, just throwing that out there.
Well, staff, we just wanted to share what we had been hearing and bring potential issues to your awareness sooner rather than later. I guess barring any strong recommendation from the board to try to address this year, probably the easiest thing to do would be to give it 1 year and see what, and then reassess.
Okay. Any other discussion on this matter? Let's move to item 12 and get an update on grant applications for the
As you
American
know-
Rescue Plan.
Thank you. As you know, we helped 4 jurisdictions in the MIPA region submit. We have not gotten full news yet. I checked in just yesterday to see if EDA staff had any updates for us. I can tell you one jurisdiction did not get it. I don't know if that person's on the line to share. He is not, but it's public, isn't it? Yeah. The city of Ankeny's application did not receive funding. And that is all that we have to share for news. They had communicated that we would have something by late March. But these are processes that can take a while, so I would anticipate sometime soon in early April. And as a reminder, there is a lot of asks and limited amount of money to be spent. But just wanted to share with you what we know as of today. And as we'll be sure to email the board. More news.
Any questions on applications? Okay, let's move to other business.
And we do have a guest with us today, Stacy from the Greater Des Moines Partnership, and she's going to share some details about the broadband study.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for letting me come to your meeting to talk about this. I know many of you on the call and many of you have been involved in the Central Iowa Broadband Study that we conducted in 2021. The report is done. We have the information, have some good recommendations on how we should proceed with broadband coming out of that study. The main points that came out were 3 main gaps that we have in broadband, as you would anticipate: infrastructure, affordability, and digital literacy. And as we were going through the plan, infrastructure came up as, so how do we tackle it? I know that we will be getting a group of the county participants together to discuss how we want to move forward with the broadband study. However, the infrastructure piece seems to fit very nicely with MIPA because as government entities are working with providers and as they are trying to expand broadband within their service area, they will be looking for grants. Primarily, a lot of them will come from the state and the federal government, which is where the expertise from MIPA will come in very strong and handy. So the question that we came to Gunnar and Andrew with saying, how can we, is this a piece from the broadband study to make sure that the broadband study continues to move forward? And as government entities, if they're needing help with grant applications, is this a piece that we can move over to be run out of MIPA instead of out of the partnership? And then the other piece is we are going to be discussing where to take those to make sure that broadband study is complete, or that we actually fulfill it. It doesn't sit on a shelf.
So from a staff perspective, there's clean alignment between the broadband study and what we had identified as critical needs in the comprehensive economic development strategy. And the biggest piece about the infrastructure is the finding and procuring of grants. So there's pretty clean alignment in mission and skill sets. So from our perspective, this made a lot of sense, but I would welcome any thoughts or feedback from the board.
And those of you who have heard me speak, you must be tired of me talking about broadband.
Silence is acceptance, right?
That's what I think. So with that, I'd call the meeting adjourned. Thanks everyone for your time today. Anything else, Gunnar? Any other things that?
That's it. Unless Todd, is there anything else you want to touch on in other business?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you so
Now
much.
I'll call it adjourned.
Bye, everyone.
Thank-
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
So we should